It began in darkness, not the kind that hides behind nightfall, but the kind that burns beneath the earth. Roman soldiers whispered of it in hushed tones in the caverns beneath their forts. A secret faith, one so mysterious that even emperors feared to name it aloud. They called it the cult of Mithras, a god no Roman-born could trace. A god of fire, light, and judgment, who demanded loyalty, blood, and silence. And for more than 4 centuries, this forbidden religion grew, hidden beneath the marble temples of Jupiter, beneath the sandals of the Caesars, beneath the very empire that tried to crush it. The first reports came from soldiers stationed in Persia around the 1st century CE. They spoke of a god born from stone, a radiant youth who sprang from the rock with a dagger in one hand and a torch in the other. His name was Mithras. Some said he was the sun itself, the eternal flame that burned away sin. Others said he was the champion of light, locked in an endless war against darkness. But one thing was certain. Those who followed him were bound by a vow of silence. They met in secret, underground, away from the eyes of Rome. And what happened in those caves, few ever lived to tell. Picture this: a dimly lit cavern carved beneath a Roman fort. The air thick with smoke and the scent of burning incense. In the center stands a marble relief, a young man plunging his dagger into the neck of a sacred bull. Blood flows from the wound, feeding snakes and scorpions carved beneath his feet. Around him, 7 robed figures kneel. No sound, no prayers, only the echo of a chant, ancient, rhythmic, and terrifyingly calm. This was the Tauroctony, the central mystery of Mithraism. To outsiders, it looked like madness. To the initiates, it was a promise that from sacrifice came rebirth, that through death came eternal life. The Romans had seen many cults before, Isis, Serapis, Cybele, but none like this. Because Mithras was not a god of pleasure or indulgence. He was a god of discipline, of duty, of truth earned through trial. His followers called themselves soldiers of light, and every initiate was tested, physically, mentally, and spiritually. The cult's teachings were divided into 7 levels of initiation, each symbolizing a step closer to divine truth. The raven, servant of the god. The nymph, born of purification. The soldier, loyal to Mithras. The lion, protector of the flame. The Persian, keeper of sacred law. The courier of the sun, messenger of light. And finally, the father, leader of the mysteries. Every initiate swore an oath of silence, bound to secrecy even unto death. To reveal the rituals was to betray the god himself. And the Romans, ever practical, saw something dangerous in this. Not because of the blood or the mystery, but because Mithras inspired loyalty stronger than the state. Soldiers who joined the cult no longer served only Rome. They served Mithras first. His temples were called Mithraea, small stone sanctuaries hidden beneath cities, often shaped like caves, a reflection of the world below, where light struggled to pierce eternal darkness. And yet, the cult spread like wildfire through the legions. From Britannia to Syria, Mithraea appeared in forts, camps, and border towns. Wherever the Roman eagle flew, the light of Mithras followed in secret. By the 2nd century CE, the cult had become one of the most powerful underground movements in the empire. Even emperors like Commodus were rumored to have joined its ranks. Its symbols appeared carved into walls beside imperial insignia. Its rituals whispered in the shadows of the Colosseum itself. But what was it they feared? What power did this god of stone hold that made the might of Rome tremble? Ancient writings hint at a truth far more unsettling. Unlike the state cults, which worshipped gods who demanded tribute and obedience, Mithras offered something Rome could not: salvation. In a world ruled by hierarchy, where birth determined fate, Mithras promised that any man, slave or soldier, could reach the realm of the divine through courage, endurance, and loyalty. He didn't demand riches. He demanded truth. Every ritual in his name represented a struggle between light and darkness, mirroring the cosmic battle Rome itself claimed to fight. But here's the paradox. In Mithras' world, light could only exist after darkness. And that was blasphemy to Rome, because Rome was the light, the eternal flame of civilization. To suggest a god beyond that flame was to challenge the empire itself. So the Senate turned its gaze toward the cult. They couldn't outlaw it outright. It was too secret, too intertwined with the army. But they feared it. They called its followers the buried ones, men who prayed underground, who pledged to a god not approved by Caesar. Philosophers like Porphyry warned that Mithras worship led men to madness, to abandon reason for symbols. Others whispered that in the deepest rituals, blood was spilled, human, not animal. That initiates drank wine mixed with blood, reenacting the death of the bull, believing that consuming the sacrifice made them immortal. Was it true? No one outside the cult knew for sure, because every Mithraic initiate took his secret to the grave. But one question remained. Who was Mithras really? A Persian god? A Roman invention? Or something even older? Because long before Rome, in the deserts of ancient Persia, there was another Mitra, the god of covenant and light, protector of truth in Zoroastrianism. He was the bridge between man and God, the guardian of contracts, the enemy of lies. When the Romans discovered his image, they didn't just adopt him. They transformed him. They stripped away his Eastern roots, gave him a new myth, a new cult, and a new purpose. And yet, buried within those Roman caves, the ancient fire still burned. The same flame that once lit Persian altars 1,000 years before. A fire that refused to die. By the time of Emperor Diocletian, the cult had grown too large to ignore. In 307 CE, Diocletian himself dedicated a temple to Mithras, calling him the protector of the empire. But that act of honor sealed Mithras' fate. Because within decades, a new religion would rise from the East, one that also spoke of light and salvation, of a God born in humble form, of a final victory of good over evil. And when that new faith met the old fire, Rome would choose only one. The world was changing. By the 4th century CE, Rome had grown weary, its armies stretched thin, its faith divided. The old gods of Olympus were fading, their temples quiet. But deep beneath the crumbling cities, the followers of Mithras still gathered. Their fires burned in secret, flickering against the damp stone of underground sanctuaries. To outsiders, these were just caves. To the initiates, they were gateways to eternity. Each Mithraeum was built the same way, long, narrow, and dark, with walls that closed in like the inside of the earth itself. At the far end, carved in stone or painted in bright pigment, was the same image repeated over and over through the empire, Mithras slaying the bull. But this wasn't just a sacrifice. It was cosmic creation. To the initiates, the bull's death symbolized the birth of life itself. Its blood, spilling into the stars, gave birth to the world, to time, to the movement of the heavens. It was not a myth of cruelty. It was a myth of transformation. Yet, to Rome's rising Christian leaders, it looked like something far darker. By now, the parallels between Mithraism and Christianity were impossible to ignore. Both faiths spoke of light conquering darkness. Both used ritual meals, bread, wine, and sacred words to symbolize unity with the divine. Both promised eternal life to those who followed in secret devotion. But the similarities were too close, too dangerous. Because if Mithras was the god of light, what did that make Christ? The church fathers called Mithras the devil's imitation of Christ. Tertullian, one of the earliest Christian theologians, accused Mithraic priests of copying baptism and communion. He wrote, "The devil, in the mysteries of Mithras, imitates the sacraments of God. In their eyes, Mithras was no longer just a rival god. He was a deceiver, an antichrist figure, sent to corrupt Rome's soul before the true faith could rise. But in the caves, the followers of Mithras didn't care what the bishops thought. Their rituals were older than the church, rooted in mystery, not doctrine. They believed that when Mithras struck down the bull, he released the divine spark trapped within matter. To them, the universe was a battlefield, a cosmic war between order and chaos, light and shadow. And man's soul, it was the battleground. Every initiate was told that his purpose was not to worship, but to become, to transform himself through 7 trials, each more painful, more demanding, more revealing than the last. He fasted. He endured whippings. He faced fire and cold, fear and isolation. And through it all, he was reminded, Mithras sees all. Truth is light. When he passed the final initiation and became a father, he no longer saw himself as mortal. He was a vessel of the god. And that was the problem. Because in Rome, only the emperor was supposed to be divine. The deeper the cult's influence spread, the more Rome's rulers grew uneasy. Even Diocletian's favor turned cold. By the time of Constantine the Great, the empire stood at a crossroads. 2 gods of light, 2 promises of salvation, faced each other. Mithras and Christ. Constantine was clever. He knew Rome could not survive divided between old and new faiths. So he chose. In 312 CE, after his victory at the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, he claimed the Christian God had given him triumph. But many forget that before that battle, Constantine's coins bore the image of Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun, a title shared by Mithras himself. Was Constantine ever truly Christian? Or did he simply exchange one sun god for another? In the decades that followed, Christianity became Rome's state religion, and the cult of Mithras, once protected by emperors, was declared forbidden. Its followers were hunted, its sanctuaries sealed or destroyed. But Mithraism didn't vanish overnight. It went underground, literally. Beneath churches, villas, and forts, the old caves still flickered with candlelight. The last fathers continued their secret masses, their sacred meals, their whispered oaths. One by one, though, the caves were discovered. In Rome, a Mithraeum beneath the Church of San Clemente was found filled with relics. Altars, reliefs, lamps, all buried under Christian foundations. In Ostia, the port city of Rome, archaeologists uncovered over 15 Mithraea packed within a few square miles. Proof that this forbidden faith once thrived right beneath the empire's beating heart. But the real shock? Some of the earliest Christian churches were built directly on top of Mithraic temples, as if to bury the god of light beneath a new light. And yet, even in suppression, Mithras refused to die. The imagery persisted. The radiant youth, the sacred meal, the cave of rebirth. These symbols began to blur with Christian iconography, seeping quietly into the new religion that had replaced it. Some historians argue that the nativity story itself, Christ born in a cave, attended by shepherds, echoes Mithraic motifs. Because in the oldest Persian versions of the myth, Mithras too was born in a cave, surrounded by shepherds who witnessed a divine star above. Coincidence? Or a transformation of one light into another? By the end of the 4th century, Mithraism had become a ghost faith. Its priests were exiled, its rituals outlawed, its temples sealed. But rumors persisted, of soldiers still praying to Mithras in secret, of officers who traced the bull's sign before battle, of oaths whispered at midnight. Mithras, Lord of truth, grant me light in darkness. Even the Christian historian Jerome confessed unease. He wrote, "The worshippers of Mithras still celebrate in caves the mysteries of the sun." It was an admission that even in victory, Christianity had not erased its twin. So why did Rome fear this faith so deeply? Was it the secrecy? The brotherhood? The challenge to imperial authority? Or was it something far more dangerous? The idea that light and salvation could be found without empire, without priests, in the heart of every man who dared to face the darkness alone. Because Mithras didn't ask his followers to believe. He asked them to become, to master themselves, to earn truth through trial, to die and be reborn not in body, but in spirit. And that was something no empire, no emperor, and no church could ever truly control. But what if the story didn't end there? What if the cult didn't vanish at all? What if its secret teachings, its symbols, its oaths, its rituals continued to shape the world in ways we can still feel today? Because centuries later, new brotherhoods would rise in Europe. Secret orders sworn to light, truth, and silence. Men who gathered underground. Men who called each other brothers. And among their symbols, a radiant sun, a sacred meal, and a hidden god. Could it be that Mithras never died? The year was 307 CE. Inside the Basilica of Maxentius in Rome, torches flickered as the emperor's men dragged in a bloodied priest. His robes were torn, and the mark of the Mithraic pteroctony, a man slaying a bull, was still visible on his medallion. The crowd had gathered in silence. Word had spread that the emperor had declared war on the cult of Mithras. No longer would secret gods whisper under Rome's stones. The empire, torn by chaos, needed a single divine order. And that's when Constantine stepped forward. He looked down at the priest, tired, defiant, unbroken. "You worship a god who hides in caves," Constantine said quietly. "And yet, your followers fight like lions. Tell me, what gives them such courage?" The priest smiled faintly, blood on his lips. "Because we die knowing the sun will rise again." The words cut deep. For Constantine had seen that same symbol, the rising sun, in a vision before battle. A light in the sky that had promised him victory. Only now did he realize that light might not have been the Christian cross. It might have been Mithras himself. The story of Mithras and Rome had always been one of mirrors. Both claimed discipline, purity, and divine order. Both built hierarchies. Both demanded faith. But where Christ preached love, Mithras demanded sacrifice. Where Christ offered salvation to all, Mithras promised it only to the chosen few. And that exclusivity, men gathering in secret, soldiers kneeling in initiation rites, terrified the emperors. In the underground temples, the Mithraea, carved deep beneath Rome, there were no women. No weak hearts. Only men who had proven themselves worthy through 7 trials, each one representing the ascent of the soul through the 7 spheres of the cosmos. These initiates called themselves syndex, those united by the handshake. They would descend into the darkness, where paintings of Mithras slaying the bull glowed in lamplight, and the air reeked of incense and blood. At the final trial, each initiate faced the sacred question: do you believe that death is but another dawn? Those who answered yes would symbolically drink from the bull's blood, the essence of cosmic life, and be reborn as soldiers of the sun. By the time Christianity began to rise from the catacombs, it met a rival that already ruled the hearts of Rome's elite. The generals, centurions, and even emperors had once prayed to Mithras for victory. But history belongs to those who win. When Constantine embraced the cross, the old gods began to fade. Yet, curiously, Mithras and Christ shared too many symbols to ignore. Both celebrated Sunday as the sacred day. Both marked the birth of their God on December 25th. Both believed in resurrection and eternal life. Coincidence? Or calculated assimilation? Some scholars later whispered that Christianity did not defeat Mithraism. It absorbed it. The rituals, the imagery, even the idea of divine brotherhood. It all flowed seamlessly from one cult into the new faith that would rule Rome for millennia. But what of the Mithraic priests? Those who refused to bow to the new order, they disappeared into the shadows. Some were executed. Others fled eastward, carrying their scrolls and relics across Persia and into the mountains of Anatolia. There, carved into the stones of forgotten shrines, archaeologists later found something shocking, a prophecy. When the empire of men kneels to a god of peace, the sword of the sun shall return in fire. Was it a warning? Or a promise that the cult of Mithras would one day rise again? No one knows. But deep beneath Rome, archaeologists have uncovered over 100 Mithraic temples, perfectly preserved under churches, streets, and palaces. In one, under the Basilica of San Clemente, lies a Mithraeum so intact it feels like the priests have just stepped out for a moment. The altar still stands. The bull-slaying fresco still glows in red and gold. And there, faintly scratched on the wall, are 3 Latin words: Sol Invictus Vivit. The unconquered sun lives. Some historians argue the cult was nothing more than a soldier's faith, a psychological ritual to cope with death. Others believe it was the true spiritual rival to Christianity, one that threatened the political unity Constantine needed. But perhaps the greatest mystery is this: did the Romans destroy Mithraism, or did they hide it beneath the very religion they adopted? Look closely at the symbols we still carry today, the halo behind saints' heads, the rays of light bursting from the heavens, the ritual of communal meals, bread, and wine. They all whisper the same ancient name, Mithras. So maybe Rome never truly killed the forbidden religion. Maybe it merely changed its face. The god of the sword became the god of light. The bull became the lamb. And the eternal handshake of brotherhood was replaced with the sign of the cross. But if one listens closely, beneath the ruins and marble, one might still hear a voice echoing from the depths of an ancient cave. The sun is unconquered, and I shall return.